Hello, it's day 113, and I want to talk about nourishment. I hate the word nourish. It provokes in me like this visceral disgust, the same way that the word moist does for some people. Like nourish. It's a gross word to me, and I think that's mostly because I have a lot of baggage attached to that word. Back in the early 2010s, I frequented a message board where fat people were regularly mocked. They would post pictures of fat people, memes of fat people, little anecdotal stories about how gross fat people were and all of the annoying things that fat people did in life. And the word nourish was kind of a in-joke on that board. Like fat people would be mocked using the word nourish. Like, oh, she can't put down the fork because she needs to be nourished. Like, this fat girl, like, we can't possibly deprive her of her nourishment. It was like it was a mean way to take a jab at the fat people without overstepping a boundary and getting a ban. But I've been reading that intuitive eating book, and I'm pretty close to done with it now. And the word nourish and nourishment has popped up an awful lot. And anytime it does pop up in that book, I can't help but imagine those two doctors on the cover just like descending from the heavens, like, oh, my child, you need to be nourished. It evokes that same like mockery feeling from that image board long ago. I know they probably don't mean for it to be that way, but as a fat person who has spent a lot of time in anti-fat spaces in an attempt to kind of like bully myself into becoming skinny, I guess, it's a word that really, it kind of smacks me in the face every time I hear it or see it. But weirdly enough, I am coming into a point in my life where I'm starting to see the reason why you might think more about nourishment than about calories. So for example, today I hung out with my niece. I babysat my niece today. It was a good time. We had a lot of fun. We played outside. We walked through the garden. It was a good time. But at lunchtime, I asked her, like, okay, what do you want for lunch? You want pizza? I could make pizza. And she said, no, I don't want pizza. And like me with that intuitive eating stuff in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, all right, let's just run with this. I was like, okay, so what do you want? Now keep in mind, she's a very tiny little girl. She's like barely 4 years old. And I asked her, like, so what do you want? And she said, I want eggs. Probably because we had just been out to see the chickens. But I was like, okay, eggs, we'll have eggs. How many eggs you want? 2. I want 2 eggs. Okay, 2 eggs. So I cook up 2 eggs for her. I'm like, do you want anything else? Pineapple. Okay, I'll give you some pineapple. I give her a couple slices of, fresh pineapple I'd cut up that morning. Anything else? No. Do you want a drink? No. Okay, fine. So we sit down, and I ate the same thing as her. I had eggs and pineapple. It was a weird lunch, but it worked. And it was weird because she ate her 2 eggs, and she ate like maybe 1 slice of pineapple, and then she was done. And I was like, are you done? Yup. And off she goes to play. It was so strange because the intuitive eating book says that toddlers are naturally intuitive eaters. They naturally regulate themselves based on what they need in the moment. And like without the influence of the rest of my family, particularly my mother's influence, it did end up like she is a pretty good eater. She ate what she wanted, not too fast, not too slow, and then it was done. Mealtime done. I packaged up the rest of the pineapple that she didn't eat, and now it's leftovers. But it was interesting to watch that toddler thought process when it came to food, because one of the things that I constantly get told about my niece is what a pain in the ass she is to feed. Like, she never sits down, she never wants food, you can never feed her. But it was actually a relatively easy endeavor today. I just asked her what she wanted, and I made her what she wanted. And it was a pretty healthy choice. But I do also think that the intuitive eating people are kind of wrong, because I think that I did influence her choice of food today. She wanted eggs because I took her out to see the chickens, and we did chicken chores together this morning, and I told her all about how the chickens make the eggs, right? So it was on her mind. she knew that there was food available from a relatively close source. Also, she saw me cutting up the pineapple this morning. It was a pineapple I got whole, so I had to, do the whole pineapple butchery. I think the intuitive eating people are wrong when they kind of treat intuitive eating and like a person's nourishment as an island, right? Like everybody is their own little island, completely separate, and nobody is ever influencing anybody else. But that's bullshit. We are constantly influenced by our surroundings, and that includes our food choices. I think that my influences have been very negative over the course of however many decades I've been dieting constantly now. But I think that if I were to allow myself to think a little bit more presently about what I'm eating, I would probably have a better time when it comes to nourishment. It wouldn't be so much about calories. It would be more about satisfaction and what I want in the moment. Food is hard. Food is the hard part when it comes to getting healthy. Working out is easy once you find something good that you can do over and over again, but the food part is very, very difficult. Still working on it.